Good morning, everyone. I'm Deborah Rose with Realty One Group in beautiful Payson, Arizona. Welcome to the talk show live, and we have a fabulous guest today, my very special friend and favorite lender, Mike Engelking. So we want to invite you to join this conversation. It's going to be very informative. If you know of anyone that is interested in the real estate market, interest rates, this is going to be the right show for you. So I want to first thank Cameron Davis of Razor Thin Media. Thanks, Cameron, for putting this show on. And don't be afraid to ask questions, like and share this show with your friends and family during or after. And I just want to say welcome, Mike Engelking.
Thank you.
Nova Home Loans, 25 years a mortgage broker.
Yep, flying by.
You have a lot of experience. So we're really interested in your take on what is going on right now with interest rates. Do you want to start?
Sure. I do want to say thank you for having me. It's an honor, and to be able to chat with one of the premier top agents in Central Arizona. I'm super honored.
Oh, thank you.
Interest rates, huh?
Yeah, it's changing, isn't it? Do you see the market shifting a little bit from your perspective? What do you say?
Well, we are getting a lot of phone calls, and clients are hearing in the media that interest rates are moving up, or the feds are going to be moving up rates, and they've started to already. And so there's a lot of questions and concerns about that, and where are they now? And they have moved quite a bit. We're just about at 5%, in the high fours, 5% in some cases on a 30-year fixed already. So that's moved a lot. And one of the reasons why that is so important is that when rates move 1%, it's like paying 10% more for the house.
Okay, so the payment goes up, when it goes up 10% on a $300,000 house, so they're looking at another $300 a month?
Yeah, approximately.
Okay.
Another way to look at it is that, if they're buying a $300,000 house, and if it goes up 10%, so it's like $30,000 equivalent more is what you're paying for the house. So you can see it could actually change the sales price you qualify for, or the neighborhood you get into, as the rates go up.
Correct. Do you see it slowing down, or are experts anticipating it continuing upward and outward?
From what we're reading and the services that we subscribe to, is that they are projected to continue to move up. And that's why there is some sense of urgency to get into a property if you can, because they are most likely going to continue to rise, especially since inflation is projected to rise, and historically mortgage rates will rise with inflation.
Correct. Okay. So what does that mean to a home buyer that has been trying to get into the market for the last year and has faced tremendous frustration with not getting properties, especially if they have a loan and they're continually going up against cash investors, cash buyers? Do you have any advice for home buyers right now?
Yeah, this is common. I mean, people are frustrated. There's just, because of the lack of inventory, and there's such high demand, that it's been challenging and frustrating. People have hit the pause button and decided, I'm going to do something later. My advice would be to do whatever you can to buy a house right now, and to be super persistent, and just be aggressive, and be committed to making it happen. It's a fight, and it's just like a lot of things in life. It takes work and effort to get there, and the payoff is huge. So that would be my initial conversation with them.
This is a good conversation, because when you see the market starting, when stocks start dipping, inflation going up, the wealthy pull their money oftentimes, not always, but often pull at least some of their money out of the stock market, and they put it into real estate. So are you saying this to buyers because it's one of the only ways to protect their money?
Yes, like we're really concerned about people's wealth right now, and the average family who's working and just trying to put food on the table, and they have a certain amount of income, and they can care for their family, but as the inflation continues to rise, it's eating away at what they have available to spend and buy groceries and whatnot, take care of their kids. So as the inflation rises, it gets to 10, 15, some people think you can hit 20%. That's like if you make $100,000, you've really made $80,000. So it's deteriorated your working capital. So the real estate, if you invest money in real estate, as inflation occurs, everything gets more expensive, right? All the lumber and the copper and plumbing and just everything that goes into building a home becomes more expensive. So the value of that asset increases, and it protects you through times like this.
Interesting. Yeah, because the reality is the rents are going up too. I mean, it's still more expensive to rent than to purchase a home. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah. Like compared to like when in 2007 when the market was changing, the rents were cheap.
Yes.
You could like rent a luxury home for $900 a month. That's not the case right now. I mean, the rents are significantly higher than what a mortgage payment would be.
So should consumers be afraid? I mean, I think the fear out there with most buyers and sellers and the public in general is that we're getting winds of memories of what happened in 2005, 6, 7, and 8. Do you see any differences between that market and this one?
That's a really good question, because when we're talking to clients, they sometimes want to wait until the bubble bursts or the prices come down. And we just caution them not to shoot themselves in the foot. And the reason is because they are speaking from experience of 2007, from the financial crisis. Maybe them personally, or maybe they saw a family member go through it and it was very tragic. And so they're cautious now, and in their mind, they just think that that's the natural progression, that we're going to see some huge drop in values. But the difference is that back then, rents were super cheap.
Right.
And then also there were a lot of mortgage products out there that allowed people to buy properties with zero down or very little down. You could buy an investment property with zero out of pocket. That's impossible to do now.
Right.
And so there's all of these products were designed to make it too easy to get into a mortgage, and they were also a lot of variable rates.
Yes.
So what happened is those rates started to go up, the payments changed, and because people didn't have any equity in the property, there was no room for them. They couldn't, when the market shifted, they had to let the properties go. But these days, there's just the mortgage products are different, the demand is different. It's just, you can't even compare it.
Okay. Do they see, or you said you subscribe to some information, is there anything on the horizon that predicts another crash in the real estate market or housing market?
We don't see anything on the horizon that would indicate that. There's about 400 people coming to Arizona net a day. The millennials are buying, all these 28 to mid 30 age people that were late buying. They stayed with their family a little bit longer than previous generations, are now at the point, even though that they're buying late and they stayed with their families longer, they now have new family formations happening. They're starting to have kids, and they're not going to stay with their family anymore. So they're new family formations. So just the amount of people we have coming to Arizona and new family formations, we can't build the homes fast enough. So
Well, Maricopa County is the #1 county in the nation for growth. And in terms, you work, I know you do loans up here in Gila County, but you do a lot of your loans in Maricopa. What are you seeing in terms of how much people are paying for homes? How much over asking do you see happening in Maricopa?
The average is $13,000 over ask price. So sometimes it's significantly higher than that, depending on the price point.
So what do you do to help buyers procure a property, since it is a good idea to invest in real estate? It is wealth building tool for sure. How can we protect buyers and help them get into a home when they have a loan and they're going up against a cash buyer? We
have some great strategies because it is difficult. when you have so many buyers in such demand where they have access to cash, and you're, say, a first-time home buyer and you have minimal down payment, maybe 3%, 3.5% down, maybe you're getting a gift from a family member, it can be challenging because the seller may look at that and just say, oh, you know what, I would rather just take a cash offer rather than try to deal with a buyer who has a contingency on financing. So the way that we compete with that is that we can offer 2-week closings, so we can close almost as fast as cash. Sometimes that's important to the seller. We have something that's called a peace of mind double pledge, which is essentially an on-time closing guarantee. And we underwrite the file up front, so there's no credit or income concerns or anything the seller has to worry about. There's pretty much just an appraisal and title work that's needed. So that's like the next best thing you can do to cash, is to do the peace of mind on-time closing guarantee. And then we are also, I think finding out what's important to the seller is important. It's not always about how much you net.
It is true. There is a interesting phenomena happening now that I see as a realtor, and maybe you're seeing as a lender, that the public is caught on to a lot of these cash buyer investor corporations, entities, and they've been very successful at getting a lot of bids because they're willing to pay a lot more than asking. But are you seeing the same trend as I'm seeing? Because you issue loans, so you make your money when a contract's accepted and they have a loan. You don't make money when it's cash. So are you seeing more and more buyers getting through to these multiple offers? And if so, why do you think that's happening?
Yes, we are, because the population has caught on to the amount of investors that are in the market. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being an investor.
There's nothing wrong, right?
But what happens is because it is challenging, the sellers acknowledge that, and sometimes they see a buyer who might be a first-time home buyer. We've had one recently where it was his first time and very limited money, and they are going to live in the property and love the property. And some sellers are stepping back and saying, you know what, rather than trying to take this offer from an investor where we can make a few more bucks, let's help this young guy get into this because we love this home, we're connected to it, it meant a lot to us. Let's maybe bring him in and accept his offer. So we're starting to see that, and I think you've had some experience with that as well.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of sellers, it's not just about the money. I mean, and at some point, the gouge has got to stop, because it's not going to be helping the sellers going into the future with rising inflation, because you will see more and more inventory coming on the market, which is another sign that it's slowing, which I think is needed. We're kind of correcting subtly. I think the sellers are putting more heart into their decisions, and I think it's the job of a good realtor to convey, not necessarily like what we call like a love letter, which now we could get in trouble with. We have to be very careful as realtors not to violate fair housing laws and present a family that could potentially be discriminating against another family, right? So we don't do that, but I think people's heart are in their homes, and they don't necessarily want somebody to come in and flip it and make more money. They want, especially in Payson, where we have such a cry, at least I do, for the working class, and the housing prices escalating so rapidly that, in an area where it's 90% retirees and secondary home market, which is affluency, by the way, and there's 10% of the working class, and they're getting crushed by the prices. We have to give these buyers every chance possible to be able to secure a home in our market. So we're very reliant on great lenders, not mediocre lenders, because most lenders I work with, they don't communicate, they don't keep people informed, and that is a surefire way to potentially lose a deal. as it's getting to the closing. So I would encourage buyers to pick your lender very, very wisely and make sure they have a stellar reputation and they're excellent at communicating, because when we have collateral fallout, it's usually at the end because there's been no communication and now there's a problem, or the lender is not equipped to step in and do something fantastic. Like you said, you have a program which covers up to $5,000 if you don't do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
I think that's a game changer.
Yeah.
I wish all lenders would do that, because that makes you hyper vigilant to make sure the
Put your money where your mouth is,
and
right?
put your money where your mouth is. That's
and so
great.
when the seller sees that, if we didn't close, we put up $5,000, or if we're late, we pay $250 to the buyer and the seller for each day, up to $6,000. That's why it's called the double pledge, because the first pledge is if we don't close, it's $5,000, and then the second pledge is it's $250 a day, the buyer and seller, for every day we're late. So we're serious. We don't want to spend that money. Like we're gonna close on time. Like we're committed to that. And so that really helps a lot. And then another strategy too, that I know that is important to you as a realtor, is the communicating piece that you mentioned, is that it's Sunday, we're calling the listing agents and letting them know how strong our buyer is. And we get calls, sometimes we make that call to the listing agent when you make an offer as a real estate agent. They will say things like, we have 16 offers on this house and you're the only lender that called.
I know. That's what I love about you, and that's why I use you all the time. Because not only do you give me updates every week, you're giving the listing agent an update every week. And I can't tell you, I sell a lot of homes, how frustrating it is. I think 80 to 90% of lenders don't even pick up the phone and talk to me, not one time. Yeah. And just because I represent the seller, I need to know what's going on to keep my seller updated. Yeah. So lenders out there that don't practice this, you need to, because great agents won't use you. I'm just being very blunt, because it's a deal killer for me. So thank you for always doing that. How did you get so good at doing that, actually? What makes you, how did you get to that discipline? Because that's a discipline.
Well, I think that, my dad got me in the business in 1996. He was a lender, and I was working, while I was going to school, I was his assistant. And I think that I saw I had a lot of people that we were working with that were commenting on bad experiences that they had, and how poor communication is in the industry. And then later on, purchasing my own properties, having bad experiences, things not being explained very well. I saw the need that people need help, and it's fun and rewarding to be able to educate the buyer, especially the first time home buyers.
They're so excited. I love working with first time home buyers.
So just looking for ways to help the buyer, especially in times like this when we need to do whatever we can to get a buyer into a property, whatever it takes, and so we have all of these strategies, and we're going to do everything. We're committed.
Yeah.
So
and I know you're committed to your growth and your education. Like, you don't rest on your laurels for what you did last year or even last month. You're striving to improve your systems and processes and become a better communicator. So I appreciate that in you. That's a really incredible quality, and I think any lender that wants to know more about how Michael does it should contact him. Honest to God,
Sure.
I mean, you're head and shoulders above the crowd with how you operate your business.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's any questions out there. Anyone asking?
We don't have any questions yet, but
Okay.
I do have one question. So with talking about home, first home buyers and people that are possibly on the fence of whether to buy now or not, they're constantly hearing the negative part of don't buy right now.
Right.
What is the first step that they should look at to maybe step forward and make that decision to move forward?
So they definitely want to have a conversation with a loan officer. And so our process is that we find out what is important to them. It's just a conversation about what your goals are. Are you trying to are you a first-time home buyer? Are you relocating? You want to buy a second home, whatever it is. We need to know what you're trying to do and what's important to you. And then we gather information on income, assets, and credit. We can do that online or over the phone or in person. And then we will look at income and credit, and we do a pre-qualification, and you get a pre-qual letter in your hand that states how much what your buying power is, sales price, payment, what your cash to close is. And then now that you have that and you know exactly what you can do, then you will work with the realtor to see what properties, what sales price and neighborhoods that are going to work for you and your family.
So talk a little bit about credit scores and why those are so important.
Yeah, so the credit scores, the programs are credit driven, but you do not have to have perfect credit. The highest credit score you can have is 850, but there are programs that will go down to a 500. A lot of people don't realize that. So the two biggest things that prevent people from reaching out and trying to buy a home are either down payment or credit. And neither one of those should stop you from looking into it, because there are down payment assistance programs. And then Nova actually has an in-house credit services department, and it's complimentary. We have certified credit specialists. So it's never going to be a no, you can't buy. It's going to be, here's your path to buy. We're going to help you with your credit. We're going to maybe help you with some down payment assistance money. But there are great programs in the 580 range. You can put as little as 3.5% down with a 580 credit score. And then, of course, even if you do qualify, we're going to still help you with your credit so that you get better terms or have more options later.
Okay.
That's really helpful, because some people are right there at the cusp, and changing your credit score 20, 40 points does not take too much effort and too much time, right? I mean, 20 points, 40 points typically takes what in your experience?
I mean, sometimes it could be done in a matter of days. So, and it's not just, our credit work is not done just for people who have issues with their credit. We will have people that have 700 credit scores and they go under contract, but we're like, okay, let's get you to a 720 or a 740 because we can get you a little bit better terms or interest rate.
And that's the key. The interest rate is better the higher your score, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's just, why not work on that? Even if you do qualify, let's maximize your credit score through the process. But anybody who is concerned about their credit or not having down payment money, don't let that get in your way. Just give us a call and let's have a consultation. There's no obligation, there's no cost or anything, like Deborah had mentioned. So I encourage you to reach out. And
you've got a website. Do you want to tell the public what your website address is so they can go and look and check it out?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to MikeEngelking.com, and I'm sure Cameron will probably type it out for you. Mike.
Spell it for them just so they know.
Okay, so it's just Mike, M-I-K-E, and then the last name Engelking, E-N-G-E-L-K-I-N-G, MikeEngelking.com, and that'll take you to our Nova Home Loans website.
And then they can even do an application without even picking up the phone, right? I mean, if they fill out an online application, then one of your team members reaches out to them to have the conversation.
Right, yep.
About their finances.
You can do it right there. It takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we'll reach out to you and we'll set up a consultation call.
What if they don't have a realtor? Do you recommend realtors like in your area, and then tell us about what qualities you look for in a realtor? Like what causes you to refer to, say, there's thousands of agents in Maricopa County, but who are the realtors you pick down there and why?
Okay, yeah, we work with some amazing realtors, and we will refer our clients to a realtor depending on really the area of town that you're going to be looking, and match somebody up with what we feel would be a good personality and who is an expert in the area where you are looking. Personally, I feel like it's what makes some of these agents great, and or the ability to negotiate. So that is really the key. What I feel like you look for in a real estate agent for selling or buying really is the negotiating power that they have.
That's
Skills.
really good. What about responsiveness and communication? Do you look for that too? Because I think in the busyness of this frenzied market, that might be a critical component too. Because if they're good at communicating with you and communicating to the buyer, they're probably going to be pretty good at communicating to the seller,
Right.
which lends the skill set that you just said. But they have to be super responsive, right?
Yeah, especially in this market when things are selling so quickly, right?
Yeah.
You could miss out on opportunity if the agent isn't, available or.
Yeah. And like you said, not wearing tennis shoes to run. I know I run from place to place to place. It's hard, but you know what? You get a persistent realtor, you will get a house. And I agree with you not to give up, because there is a lot of buyers that are saying, yeah, no, we're out, we're gonna wait. And if you're in the working class category, that could really backfire on you, because Arizona is the #1 state people are moving to in general, and we have very limited inventory and a huge demand. You just have to activate a lot more patience and persistence and just keep at it and not give up,
Absolutely.
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Just whatever it takes, do it. Find if for some reason with your finances right now on your own is challenging, maybe you purchase a property with a friend or a partner or a family member.
That's a great idea. Can you get a loan with like 2 or 3 different people
Sure.
to leverage your buying power?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can put multiple borrowers on a loan, and maybe all of you live in the property, or maybe it's an investment property, you don't, but you definitely can do that.
So families could bond together and or roommates, right?
Yeah.
That's a great. I didn't know
There's a
that
lot
you
of-
could do that.
Oh yeah. There's so people will buy homes together even if they're not married, just as roommates, just to be able to invest in it, and they both live in the property. Sometimes people will have a family member co-sign and they won't occupy it, but they'll co-sign to give them the additional money, income, in order to qualify for what they want.
Let's talk about loan fraud though too, because there is a reality happening, and they are enforcing it, about defrauding the lender. Can you talk about that just a moment, so people actually don't do that when they go to purchase a home and maybe lie on a loan application, what that looks like and what the consequences are?
Well, I think that the first thing that's coming to mind when you say that is someone trying to buy a property as a primary residence, but really it's a rental property, or they're going to Airbnb it. That is a problem.
Oh yeah, we've got that up here on a massive scale, the Airbnbs.
Yeah, not a good idea to do something like that. If the lender caught that you did not move into the property and that you rented it out right away, they could call the note due, and the loan would have to be paid off in 90 days. Yeah, or they could press charges, for loan fraud. So it's important that if you are going to buy the property as a primary, that you treat it as that, and that has to be what your intentions are going into it. Now, you can change that later if something, you can turn a property into a rental property later, but it's all about what your intention is up front going into it.
And people would lie because they get a better interest rate, or what's the motivation?
Yeah, the terms are better on a primary residence, so the interest rate is better, there's less fees, there's less money down, you can put a lower down payment.
Do you find that they are checking on this more and more nowadays, or not too much?
I feel like since the financial crisis that they pay attention to it closer. Like I think that I'm sure they do random audits. They'll look and see if the utilities are in your name or something. Or if you change the insurance to an investor policy as opposed.
Or they can just go on VRBO or Airbnb and see if it's being rented out as an Airbnb.
Right. Yeah.
Which is dangerous. Loan fraud is what? That's a felony, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Mm-hmm. That's a good topic, because I think as interest rates continue to rise, people may think like that, and this could potentially save them from.
Yeah, it's something interesting has happened recently in the industry. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are these huge entities that buy a bulk of these types of loans, and they're the ones that write most of the guidelines. So Fannie Mae has increased the interest rate on second homes to the point where it's actually in some cases more than an investment property. And they didn't come out and say directly why they did that, but we wonder if they did it because so many people were buying second homes and turning them into Airbnb properties, that maybe they just felt like, because they price in, they create the interest rate based off of risk, whether it's your primary, second home, or an investment property. And so historically, when people get into financial trouble, the first properties to go are the rental properties. You're more likely to make the house payment, the home you live in. And so I think that they realized that there were a lot of people that were turning them into Airbnbs or investment properties and second homes, and they made the cost higher on second homes recently. That's just my opinion of why they did it, but it has happened.
Yeah, well, and they have every right to do it. They're the ones loaning the money, so it's expensive. In terms of closing costs, what's the average closing costs on a $300,000 loan, like and buyers looking at the funds that they need to close a house? You talk about having 3.5% down, but what should the buyers expect to wrap it all up and be able to procure a home?
Right. When you're buying a home, you're expecting the down payment money, and so it is important to remember that there are other settlement charges.
Yeah. And
you have loan costs, and you also have some taxes and insurance that you have to prepay. So it does depend on it's difficult to give an exact percentage because it does change depending on the price point. But typically you're going to have about somewhere between $5,000 to $6,000 in settlement charges. There are ways to do less closing costs. People have probably heard of low closing costs or no closing cost loans. So there's ways to structure that sometimes by maybe choosing a different interest rate. So maybe a higher interest rate can give you lower closing costs, or maybe the lower interest rate is more important and you're willing to pay a little bit more closing costs. But I would plan on anywhere from 1% to 2% if I had to pick a number in settlement charges on top of the down payment money.
On top of the down payment money. Okay, that's helpful. Okay, well, this has been very informative.
It's been fun. Thank you.
So Michael Engelking is available at mikeengelking.com. You have an office in Scottsdale, but you also have a home here in Payson, and you have met plenty of clients up here in Payson.
Oh, yeah.
So you service a lot of the state, and if you are interested in buying a home, have faith, don't give up. I would recommend you talk to Mike Engelking or someone that you know and trust who is a lender, and just continue to fight the good fight, because there will be opportunities more and more as the inventory starts to increase, and we want you to succeed in owning real estate and building your family's wealth. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you,
It was
Deborah.
wonderful to have you. And this show will be archived at PaysonAZProperties.com. That's my website. Also on Facebook and YouTube. And thank you for joining us today. Thanks again to Cameron Davis, and we'll see you next month. Have a great day.